Hey guys, my name is Jason Rao. I'm a black belt under Matt Serra. I train and teach at my academy, Vanguard Academy on Long Island, New York. This instructional is going to focus on outside passing. So this is one of the best ways to apply pressure, especially to the modern guards we see being played in jiu-jitsu right now. The main focus of this instructional is going to be getting outside of our partner's feet. Anytime we're standing in front of our partner, that gives them access to various guards and control points that they can use on us and start to attack us. So the main focus of this instructional is getting outside my partner's feet and applying pressure from the outside. A lot of times when people think of pressure, they think of applying body weight or tight passing, things like that. This is a different type of pressure. We were putting pressure by forcing our partner to constantly re-guard or recover their guard. As we interpret their reactions and then are able to switch to different types of passes, we're moving outside of our partner's legs. So this is a really effective form of passing. And it's great to combine with your tight and pressure passing. The best guard passes are people that can apply some type of outside passing with some type of tight pressure passing. So I hope you guys enjoy outside passing instructional. All right, guys, so outside passing is one of the most effective ways we can pass the guard. So generally speaking, we refer to outside passing. We're referring to any type of passing where we get outside of our partner's feet right here. All of his offense from bottom position is going to involve me being in front of him. So he needs to make some type of connection to me with his feet, whether it's De La Riva, reverse De La Riva, butterfly guard, feet on the hips, whatever the case is. So my outside passing is going to always involve getting outside my partner's feet and staying outside my partner's feet for as long as possible. The longer I can stay in these positions, the more energy efficient I'm going to be relative to my partner. When I get to these positions where I'm outside of his feet, Diego on bottom has to do a few things to recover. His entire goal here is to square himself back up with me. So he needs to use a combination of pushing on me with his arms and pulling his knees to his chest, and then using that to bring his feet back in front of me and squaring himself up with me. So over the course of a match, especially in modern day jiu-jitsu, if I can continuously get outside my partner's feet, over 3, 4, 5 minutes, where I'm continuously doing that 20, 30, 40 times over the course of that match, I'm going to be using far less energy than my opponent's going to be using. So my energy bar is going to stay high relative to his, and over time we can break down our partner and eventually get through to that guard pass. So that's the general strategy that we're looking to do with this outside passing, is continuously get outside our partner's feet and interpret his reactions that he's going to give us, which will allow us to transition to different outside passing options and eventually settle into my guard pass. All right, so we talked about the main concept is getting outside our partner's feet. That will lead to our outside passing. We're going to go over a few different gripping sequences that, as we get through this instructional, that we're going to be using with different variations. So generally speaking, to start, we're going to be dealing with a supine opponent. There's a few ways I can initially grab his feet right here. A lot of times I'm going to be using what's called a C grip. Like I say, C grip, like I'm looking at my hand like this. And most of the time I'm controlling higher up on his shin. So this can change depending on whether his legs are extended or whether his knees are to his chest. In general, if his knees are to his chest, I'm going to be using these high C grips. And I can use this to start to move my partner around. When I load his knees to his chest, his lower back comes off the mat. It makes it easy for me to start to move him, turn him, and start to get into my passing. So I can just use general C grips. I can also use an inverted V grip. An inverted V grip is where I turn my hand the other way, just like this. So a lot of times I might turn one hand down to a C grip, the other hand an inverted V grip, just like this right here. So I'm turning palm up. This forces him to react a little bit differently, which we're going to get into. But as opposed to going 2 C grips, we can switch into this position right here. So now when he goes to recover his guard, it's very hard for him to bring his legs in, and that will facilitate some of the other passes we're going to be doing. Once we get outside the feet, a lot of times we switch from grips on the ankles to start to come up to the knees right here. So initially, I generally never want to be grabbing my partner's knees like this. It's very easy from the pummel of his feet inside. So I'm going to be a little bit lower. Once we get outside the feet, I start to think about controlling his knees. So I'm going to have one hand on the near knee to prevent this near leg from coming inside, and one hand on the far knee, just like this. And when he goes to start to pummel his legs inside, as I have control of his knees, it becomes very difficult for him. And then eventually we're going to transition to our hip and knee post, that's when we start to move into our guard passes and our various options. So initially, we're using either some type of C grip or an inverted V grip to control our partner. As we get higher up on their body, we come to the knees, and then eventually we're going to come to the hips and the head. We'll start to move into our guard pass right here. So these are our initial grips we're using to create angles. Then we're going to get into the different ways we're going to actually be creating those angles with those different legs. So we're going to first talk about when my partner's knees are to their chest and how I'm creating angles right there. Generally speaking, against a knees to chest opponent, it's easiest to create my angles because his legs are generally further away from me. However, it's harder for me to actually secure the pads. We're going to get into doing that. But when his knees are to his chest, it's much easier for me to get outside his feet. But ultimately, when I do go to pass the guard, I have to open up this elbow-knee connection. So when his knees are to his chest, he's maintaining a strong connection there. So generally, it's a little bit harder for me to secure the pass, but easier for me to create some angles. So when his knees are to his chest, I prefer using these double C grips about halfway up the shin. I have two ways I can cut my angle. I can do a spinning movement. So depending how flexible our partner's hips are, a lot of times guys with very limber, mobile guards will allow me to roll their knees to their chest and get their lower back off the mat. When I do that, I'm going to spin him like a big steering wheel. My one hand on the shin pushes upwards, and my other hand on the shin goes downwards, just like this. So I pull the knees to the chest, and I spin my partner, just like this. As long as I can get that lower back off the mat, I should be able to do this. Once we're here, now we're in a good position to transition to either our hip and knee post, our double knee post, start to move north-south, and we'll get into all our options, actually securing the pass. Do that. So this spinning movement, I'm on the shins, I'm pushing one leg high, pulling one leg low. That creates this spinning effect, and now I can start to move into my guard passing. If for some reason I feel like I can't spin my partner, I can do a combination of a small throw by with a cross step. So I don't ever want to just throw my partner's legs and not have contact with them. So I want to keep contact with his legs. I move them slightly one way, and then I cross step with my leg, just like this. So I generally don't want to shuffle right here. This is pretty slow. So my back leg is going to step to my partner's hip line, just like this. I don't want to step too close in this case, because I'm going to potentially get entangled. So I just step past this hip line and then pivot. And now I'm in a position where I can start to secure my guard passes. So we have our spinning option, or for some reason I can't do that, I move the leg slightly one way, I cross step to the hip, then my other leg comes past the line of the shoulder, and now at my angle, I can start to move into my guard passing. All right, so one of the other things we're going to be dealing with on top is when my partner's legs are extended, his knees are off of his chest. So in that situation, it becomes very hard to spin my partner and cross step the exact same way. When his legs are extended, maybe he's trying to put feet on the hips. A lot of times he might kind of be angling on one hip and he's extending his legs. It becomes hard for me to start to cross step around my partner's legs right here. And it becomes hard for me to spin him because the more extended his legs are, the more his lower back's going to be on the mat. It's harder for me to turn my partner and cut angles. So I'm going to switch to C grips very close to my partner's ankles when I do this. So I slide from closer to the knees, like mid-shin, to down to the ankles. And I do like a little misdirect where I point both of my knuckles in one direction, then I step outside the feet. So I can still cross step when I do this, but I got to direct his legs. So extend your legs a little bit. I got to direct his legs in one direction, and then I start to step towards my partner's hip line. Generally, once we get outside the feet in these situations, it's a lot easier to secure the pass because his knees are disconnected from his chest. If his knees are to his chest, we step to the hip line. Now I have to open him up, actually secure my guard pass. But in situations where his legs are extended, I can just quickly misdirect the legs to the outside. Now his knees are very disconnected from his chest, and it becomes a lot easier for me to secure that pass. So generally, I might be higher at the knees, like midway up the shin. If his knees are to his chest, makes it easier for me to spin and cross step. If his legs are slightly extended right here, I slide down to the ankles. I'm just going to misdirect his legs. So maybe he's trying to place feet on the hips or place hooks inside or anything like that. I control the C grips. I just direct the legs to one side. Now I step to the outside and we move into our guard passing. But it's always going to be a little bit easier to secure because my partner's legs are extended and his knees are off his chest. So another way we can start to create angles is using what's called a high step. So high step is used usually against extended legs. My partner's knees are in my chest. I'm not going to have space to initiate my high step pass. So we're going to do this when our partner's leg is extended, and usually they're angling themselves on one hip. A lot of times people won't be totally square. He might be angled on one hip, and sometimes the top leg will be knees to chest and the bottom leg will be extended. You kind of see this posture a lot, so he's kind of playing a little bit of a hybrid where he's closing this space off but looking to make contact with this bottom leg right here. So when I go to do this, initially I might be high on the shin, but I have to slide down to the ankle because I want to prevent that outside leg from coming in. So there's a few ways we can do this. If he's just totally reaching for me, I can just initiate my high step. But a lot of times what I'll do is I'll threaten coming to the outside to get him to extend that leg. And what I'm going to do is, my high step leg is my back leg, is I turn my toes in this direction. If I keep my toes facing this way and try to high step, I'm in a position where my knee and my toes are facing this way, and it becomes easy for Diego to entangle my legs right here. You can throw up a saddle position or a 50-50 or anything like that. So after my high step, I'm going to turn, well, as I'm high stepping, I'm turning my toes this way. So my knee faces this direction right here. So now when he goes to entangle me, it's a lot harder, and usually we move into north-south passing after we high step. So I'll just show a different angle. So here, he's on a hip, one knee's to his chest, other leg's extended. So I'm on the shin. This hand is not even going to be controlling this leg. I slide down to the ankle. Maybe I'll push the knee a little bit, but when I high step, I'm going to take the control off. Maybe I go to step back and cross step. He extends. I point my toes and I high step. And similar to our other passes, my second leg comes past the line of my partner's shoulder. So he goes to reach for me, we high step, and now we can move into our passing. So we have kind of three ways to create angles that we've gone over. We have spinning our partner, whether these are to the chest, cross stepping, when these are to the chest, when legs are extended, C-gripping at the ankles and just throwing the legs in one direction, and then moving to the outside. My partner's on one hip, and that space is open. We have our high stepping options right here. So we kind of have three ways we've gone over to create angles, and then we'll go over actually securing that guard pass, whether it be hip and knee post as side control or going north-south.